We're Ben and Lucy, and for the past 8 months, we've been on a journey east, exploring Turkey and the Caucasus, travelling as far as our old English van would let us. We faced many hurdles travelling through the winter months, with extreme cold and relentless snow in Turkey and Georgia, and more of the same in Armenia too. We've met some fantastic people along the way in village mosques, hot springs, and even tyre shops. We've soaked in the hottest, wildest hot springs, captured incredible scenery and snippets of vastly different cultures, travelling over 5,000 kilometres from our home in the UK. Some might say it was a mistake to travel here in a clapped-out English van during the coldest, wettest and all-round toughest months of the year, but we say it's all part of the adventure, and it makes a great story. In our last video, we officially ended our trip on the side of a mountain in Armenia, unable to continue because of an avalanche. It seemed like a fitting end to our travel series. But then we thought, we still have 5,000 kilometres to get back to the UK. Things were bound to go wrong, and it wouldn't seem right if we denied you the pleasure of watching it happen. So here we are. Our epic 5,000 kilometre return journey from Armenia to the UK starts here, on this avalanche hill, because, in our infinite wisdom, we decided to stop here for the night. Little did we know, the heavens would open overnight, causing the roof to leak like it's never leaked before, waking us at 4 a.m. We looked outside and to our horror, saw a mountain of snow slowly sliding towards us across the road. Gosh, it's downhill. That's extremely slippery. We attempted to leave, but the fog was so thick we couldn't see our way down the mountain.
I literally can't see the road.
I know, look, it's there, but... Whoa!
I don't know where I'm going. This is insane.
What? Okay, stop. And instead had to wait, cold, wet and terrified, until the first rays of light began to dawn. On very little sleep, we drove for 4 hours to the border with Georgia, over some of the worst roads we'd seen yet. It was hard to imagine that this was the main road to an international border. A layer of snow had settled overnight, making the roads slippery. When we arrived after several grueling hours, it was still snowing heavily. The next morning, the snow and rain had stopped, and we'd arrived at an incredible secret hot spring in the mountains of Georgia, where we stayed for a few days, patching up our van roof and preparing for the long journey ahead. And of course, taking the opportunity to soak as much as we could in the sulphurous 40-degree water. Joined by our friends Regina and Thomas in their VW T3 Edelweiss, and spent a few days together camping out, taking a look around each other's vans and enjoying the luscious alpine scenery. Soon we entered Turkey and began our long drive to Ankara, where we'd be getting some essential repair work done to the van. The journey would take us 5 days from the Georgian border, through ever-changing landscapes, over many mountain passes, through the remote eastern regions of Turkey. If you've been following this series from the beginning, you've probably lost count of the breakdowns, bodged repairs, and rust that's fallen off this old beast. So let's give you a rundown on everything we can think of right now that needs repairing. Cue nice park up in a Turkish forest.
And so here we are back in Turkey after 3 months travelling through Georgia and Armenia. Over the last 10 months, our van has suffered a lot on the bad roads that we've been driving on. So the next mission now is to get to Ankara and to hopefully get all this van fixed up before travelling back to Western Europe. Now, where we've just come from, bodywork really seems to be an optional extra, but now we're going back to the more sensible countries, back to Europe. We really need to get this fixed up. But before we do so, we are going to give you a quick tour of our van and show you just how bad this poor thing has got over the last 10 months of overlanding east. So let's show you. It's quite hard to know where to begin when we're talking about the rust on this van, so I figured we'll just go from front to back. That's probably the easiest way. We're going to start small. This is just a little bit here. The whole wheel arch seems to be very slowly coming away from the rest of the bodywork. We've got a big crack up here, and that's certainly been caused by the bumps in the roads. Right, down to the next side. So this one was quite newly discovered actually. This was our most recent rust hole, and Lucy actually managed to put her foot through it, and it's pretty bad. We've got a hole that goes from here to here to here, and the whole wheel arch now, a bit springy, a bit bouncy. And when we're travelling along muddy roads, which is pretty much every day, the mud is spurting up all the way up here onto the dash. It's making quite a mess, and this is absolutely a priority when we get to Ankara. So this is also a fairly new one. This is actually pretty bad. Every time it rains, it now rains inside onto me. So I'm getting a very wet arm, very wet leg. This one really does need pretty urgent attention. You can see it's literally crumbling away as we speak. Big, big hole, look at that. Get my finger right in there. Probably goes without saying that all of the seals, all of the wheel arches are completely rusty around the entire van. So this again, all the way around the van, is going to need welding in Ankara. But we've saved the best till last. Wait until you see how bad this is at the back. So the rear bumper, this bit here, completely hanging off, and I've got a feeling when we take the bumper off to inspect it, it's going to be much worse than we could ever imagine. Already here, there was once upon a time where I used to be able to stand on this bumper and look at the roof. Now it is completely hanging off. All of this around the number plate, whole thing is going to need replacing. This has been hanging off for God knows how long. In Georgia and Armenia, as I said, these bits of the van are optional, so it hasn't really mattered for the last few months. But certainly when we start getting back through Austria, Germany and the UK, absolutely not okay. We will get pulled over and we're going to get in a lot of trouble.
So another one of the main problems we've got on the van at the moment is that the leisure batteries are knackered, and we can put this single-handedly down to one moment, which was in Stepantsminda, where the temperature got down to -21 and it wasn't much above that inside the van. So those are definitely temperatures that can freeze and kill batteries. And you might also notice back here this lovely little carrier bag, because although we fixed as many of the leaks in the roof as we can, it is still leaking straight onto my head at night. The carrier bag helps a little bit. Now, the passenger window on the van has not been working for probably the best part of this trip. We did manage to get it fixed in Turkey, and then Ben promptly broke it again. It winds down, but then it doesn't wind back up again, and you've got to kind of manually put it up with your hand. And I don't know how many more times we can do that before the bloody thing breaks altogether. So you might be able to see this kind of mound of cracked and molten rubber on our tyre, and we can thank the roads of Armenia for that, because the potholes there are so big you could get lost in them. And a particularly deep one gashed the wall of our tyre, so deeply, but we couldn't get a replacement. So instead the guy blew up an inner tube inside of it and then used an angle grinder to kind of melt the rubber over the hole. And to be fair, it has got us this far, but we're going to need to get a new tyre because this is absolutely not legal anywhere west of here. So perhaps the biggest problem we've got on the van is the engine currently, and it's not surprising given that it's done almost 200,000 miles in the time that we've had it. So we got the timing fixed in Yerevan. It was very badly out of time, but we still had this persistent issue where the engine is burning oil and we're getting this blue smoke every time we start up. So the mechanic has advised us that it's probably the piston rings, which are right in the very centre of the engine. So we're looking at basically an entire engine rebuild when we get to Ankara, having to remove everything, rebore the pistons, and just generally, it'll be like a new engine when it's done. But the important thing is that we want to get this done in Turkey because we absolutely do not want to break down in Western Europe. So our hope is that we can get this all repaired in Ankara and then blast straight through back to England with no problems. Touch wood.
So there we go. I think that was everything on the list, although the list is very extensive, so I think we've probably forgotten some things. But as you can see, there's a lot to get done when we get to Ankara. So the plan is simple. We're going to leave this lovely forest today. We're going to drive straight to Ankara, and then hopefully, touch wood, we're going to get all of these problems resolved. But plans rarely go to plan, do they? Especially with this van, especially with our travels. So we're going to film the whole thing, and inevitably things are going to go very wrong, and we'll be able to show you the whole process. So, are we ready, Lucy?
We're ready.
Let's go.
So our long drive to Ankara began. We'd be covering 1,100 kilometres between here and there, which would take us approximately 3 days. We'd be travelling through small eastern towns, crossing high mountain passes, and navigating ever-changing landscapes. There was a friendly atmosphere in the air as we got closer to Turkey's capital city. It was just a pity the weather wasn't feeling quite as hospitable.
So we've been driving all day, we've made really good progress, but as you can hear, there's a storm brewing. It's cracking right now with thunder and lightning. We're up in the mountains about 10 minutes off the main road to Ankara. We've been making really good progress, but we had to stop. We've been driving all day long. There is risk of localized flooding today according to all of our weather apps, and indeed the mountain storm drains are really gushing here behind me. So we've got to be very careful where we're staying tonight. It's just a matter of keeping an eye on things throughout the night. This river is much higher than it should be normally, but we have very little choice where we can stay around this area. It's a beautiful place. The landscape behind me is absolutely incredible. Breathtaking scenes of the towns down here. But yeah, this storm is coming in now. The thunder is so loud because we're so high up. I think we're about 1,800 meters here. And we've been through all kinds of weather today. It's been 20 degrees and sunshine at some points. We've been up at 2,500 meters in the snow at other points, and then torrential rain at other points. And I think now we're going to settle down for a very wicked storm tonight. And we'll hit the road again tomorrow.
Soon we were back on the road and high in the stormy, snowy hills. But eventually these gave way to blue skies and open plateaus as we finally left the Armenian Highlands behind us. As we pushed on, empty melon stalls began to appear at the roadside, and large political posters hung from buildings, marking the beginning of the presidential elections, cited as one of the most important democratic votes since the creation of the Republic of Turkey in 1923. As we neared the city, towering office blocks and residential apartments began to rise from the ground. It was time to find a mechanic.
Is that the main road into the garage district? So we've just arrived at the garage district and it is completely closed. Like, not just the shops are closed, there's gates across all the roads to get into it. You can't even go and have a drive around. Not only is it Eid-Al-Fitr weekend, it's also National Children's Day in Turkey, so we have like a double public holiday today. It's generally the worst weekend of the year to try and get van work done. It wouldn't matter, but we've only got 10 days left on our van's visa, as it were, to get it out of Turkey before we have to pay an overstay fine. So we're hoping to get everything done within those 10 days, but we've been really set back this weekend by the lack of open amenities.
I guess there's nothing else for it now, is there? We'll just have to go and find somewhere nice to stay, eat some cake, and have a nice chilled day. What am I supposed to do here, Lucy?
I have no idea, Ben.
People just getting out of their cars, like it's a complete roadblock, man. Welcome to Ankara!
Yeah!
There's someone out trying to direct traffic now, look. I don't think this is normal. He's wearing a Celtics Rangers t-shirt over there.
Brilliant.
Just directing all the cars. There's loads of people out and about now, just trying to clear the traffic. Doing the police's job. I don't know. This is the Eid weekend, so there's a lot of people out. A lot of people travelling through the city with their families, and I don't think this is usual traffic. We haven't moved in a long time. It's quite fun, just people watching. There's people out stood on their cars filming it all. It's just chaos.
Oh my goodness, look at that. It looks like a car park. Oh my gosh.
Just people out everywhere. Oh my goodness, we're out of it, Lucy.
Yeah.
Hey! Woo!
That's what Ankara is like on Eid weekend.
Oh my goodness. So we're going to head down to the city now, to the garage district, and see what the day brings us. We have arrived back in the garage district this morning and it is well and truly alive today. Absolutely chaos driving around here. So we have a rough idea of a Google map marker where the garage is that we want to try and find, but they're rarely in the right place. So it's just a case of driving around endless streets, an absolute maze of garages. Luckily, we just need to find somewhere, anywhere really, that says Ford. That one says Ford on it.
It does say Ford, that wasn't one I was looking for.
So we've got an idea in mind. It's just a case of driving around fairly endlessly now to try and find the garage that we want.
We're in the garage district and we can get literally anything you could ever imagine fixed here.
I mean,
anything you can think of.
These are kind of like micro cities of their own on the outskirts of the main cities. You know, you've got mechanics restaurants, hotels, banks, mosques.
These are my favourite thing about Turkey actually, these garage districts, because you just go in, ask someone, word of mouth, they'll point you to where you need to go and get it sorted.
Yeah, I mean it normally involves a little bit of running around first, but then somehow you get matched with the perfect person that can fix everything you need them to, and then you're off, you're winning. So
let's see if that proves true today.
Service. So the mechanic so far seems to really know his stuff. This is the first garage we've tried here today, and actually we mentioned about the turbo being the problem because we just wanted to start off with an easy job, you know, one that we know needs doing. So we just mentioned the turbo. It's just a case of can they fix it and will they fix it and how long will it take? But so far I think we're off to a good start today. Hopefully we can keep this pace up.
Unfortunately, things didn't end up going as smooth as we'd have liked.
So yesterday started really well. We were quite confident that the first garage we took the van to knew what the problem was and that they were listening to us about what we wanted to happen next. Unfortunately, things turned a little bit different very quickly and they became insistent that it was the fuel pump. So we're a little bit nervous right now. As you can see, we're staying in a hotel, and as you can hear,
It's very peaceful.
it's so peaceful.
Slept really well here last night.
It was about 100 degrees in here last night. We're obviously used to sleeping in a van in the wild, where it's much fresher
And quieter.
and quieter. So it's a little bit of a shock to our systems last night. So we're now kind of in a sticky situation where we've spent €1,000 and it still might not have fixed the problem.
They're either taking us for a ride or they've identified something very serious that we wouldn't have picked up on otherwise. Time will tell. We've still got to get the turbo fixed. We've still got to get all the welding done within now a 5-day time frame before we have to get out of Turkey.
It's all good fun, isn't it? It's all good fun. You know, it's out of our hands at the minute. So we're just going to wait for that phone call today from to hopefully tell us that
The van's
fixed.
And then we'll take it for a test drive and find out if it's really fixed.
We will update you as soon as we know what's going on.
Coming up next week, the van rises from the ashes once again as we get a full fuel pump rebuild. Meet a brilliant character who attempts to, weld our van.
It's literally just covered the holes with chrome plastic.
Before finding a brilliant welding team who get us back on the road and full of baklava as we continue our huge journey back to the UK. We'll be swimming in rivers and lakes, soaking in hot springs, and of course, breaking down in one of Europe's most expensive countries. We battle fierce weather to reach the Atlantic coast, where we catch a ferry to make our way back home to Cornwall for the summer.
Talking about the rust and all the f***ery before we get to Ankara. We'll hopefully fix it up in a couple of days' time. I'm going to do that again because that was pretty shit. No, I'm not doing it right, Lucy. I'm just not doing it right.
Take your time.
Back in Turkey. Right, okay. And so here we are, back in Turkey, after about 4 months. No, I'm doing everything wrong. What am I saying? What am I doing with my life, myself, my body, my soul? What's happening? I'm doing it all wrong.
All going in the outtakes.
This and this and this and this and this. It's like the more I do it, the more it gets worse. So yesterday afternoon we arrived into the city of Ankara, and I've completely forgotten what I was going to say because I actually didn't really think about what I was going to say at all prior to that. I finally found a great use for this hole in the wheel arch down here. I don't need to have a bin anymore. I can just take my pistachio shells, chuck them through the hole in the wheel arch. Done. If anyone wants to buy a certified original piece of LDV from Rust to Roadtrip Rust, we'll be sticking this on eBay soon and let the bidding commence. Seriously though, that's good, isn't it? That's impressive.
For behind the scenes videos and to see the reality of making a TV programme and travelogue series, join us over on Patreon.